This is the Personal Branding Success in 10 Minutes podcast. I am your host, Kaitlin Zhang. Joining us here today is Maïna Cissé, who is the founder of the empowering lingerie brand, the Underargument, combining her lifelong lingerie addiction with her belief in the power of individuality. Welcome.
Hi.
Maïna, could you tell me a little bit about your background?
I'm half French, half from the Ivory Coast. I was born in France, where I grew up, and I moved to the UK over 13 years ago now. And then I had a little break living and working in Sydney for 5 years. And I've been back for a few years, and London has become my hometown. Like, that's the town I hold really dear in my heart. So this is where I feel at home.
Me too.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah,
this town is just amazing.
Just loving it here.
Yeah, I really love just the vibe. It's just coming back to London always makes me so happy. It's funny how you feel about a city, but yeah.
So you worked in branding and marketing to start.
I did. I worked in fashion a lot as a digital marketer, but then I also worked in different, various random industries. I worked for an online florist for a while. I worked as seen on TV. I worked for a lot of startups, which I think made me stupid enough to think I could do my own thing. But I really loved working with startups and just getting my hands dirty, working on different things. And I had that passion. I think the way I ended up doing marketing was because I actually wanted to be a journalist, and I started writing for some magazines here in France, in Paris. I'm currently in Paris at the moment. That's what I'm saying, here in France. And it wasn't enough. And then I moved to PR because I thought, at least in PR, I can do promotion side, but I can still write a little bit. And it still wasn't enough. I started working in events, and it wasn't really for me. And I ended up discovering marketing and discovering digital marketing. And I think that was back in 2007. So it was kind of early days for, that was back in the days when there was a lot more SEO being done and a lot more of technical geeky stuff. And I really, really loved that, and started really learning about HTML and all these things and how to couple that with marketing skills. And I really fell in love with it. And then the branding came from, the background I had in PR and promotion, I think, and developed from there. I always put customer experience at the forefront in every job that I had. It was very important for me. I just think most of the brands that exist don't need to exist. There's hardly any brand that starts nowadays that's vital to exist, right? So if you do it, it's because you want to deliver something different or a special experience to your customer, or you have a special message to deliver, because that's what gives you a reason to exist, not because your product is necessary. And I can talk for myself, working in the lingerie industry. There are a million of lingerie brands. Really, my brand didn't need to exist unless it had a specific purpose.
That's really interesting to be a purpose-driven, mission-driven company. What is your vision then for the firm? Why did you start the firm? How is it different?
So, it's fine. The idea came to me. I actually wasn't thinking I was going to start a new business or a business by myself. I was happy working with startups. I love the security of it. I love the paycheck at the end of the month. I loved all that. And then I actually came up with the idea one day because I was working in fashion, and I was very frustrated by the way we were doing castings and treating women and supposedly inspiring them. And I think this, with my addiction to lingerie, became something in my mind, and I actually woke up one day with the name The Underargument. So it's actually how it all started. It's so weird. I woke up and I was like, The Underargument. And then all these ideas started flowing. And, I was like, okay, maybe I can use lingerie something as superficial almost as lingerie. Who sees it? It's mostly something that you see for yourself. Sometimes you want to show it to others, but it's not outerwear. It's not a party dress. So I was like, maybe I can use that because it's such a hidden thing. Maybe that can become a metaphor for all these things we've got hidden inside of us. And the play on word Underargument came from that, from the fact that we all have unique things inside of us that might be counter to the norm. And those are the things that make us that are our purpose. Like the reason why we are different from each other is because we can bring something new to the table. And that's really important, I think, for women, especially, to appreciate differences and appreciate what they can bring that's different from someone else, instead of trying to look alike and think alike and fit in.
That's really interesting. And I think you're totally right. Modern brands, people do buy into the brand, but they want to know the brand's mission, purpose. And in this case, I think your personal brand is especially important to hear your story, your experience, and seeing some of the judgment that's going on in the fashion industry and choosing models. So to know that story, that background of your personal brand really helps me buy into your brand. And that's how you and I got connected. Is I did see the anti-casting, which is a blind type of casting to choose models for the lingerie brand, and I applied. So that's how we got connected with each other.
Exactly.
It's a very fun experience for me. For all the listeners out there, yes, I did do a lingerie photo shoot. So if you go onto the thanks. If you go onto the Underargument website, you look around, you might be able to see me. Tell me a little bit about why is storytelling, and especially telling the stories of women, why is that important to your brand?
I grew up in a family with a lot of boys. I have too many brothers to even count. And I grew up with, my older sister, I didn't grow up with her, and I grew up with a cousin for a couple of years who was a girl. But aside from those years, I grew up with boys, and I never heard, I was really scared of women. They really, really scared me.
Oh, no.
And and it's funny because I feel sometimes the Underargument is a bit of my therapy, because the past few years working on the brand, I'm like, oh my God, women are awesome. Why didn't I have more girlfriends before? And it really took education, because I think we're put in competition with each other. We need to look better than the next, and we need to be better than the next. And we're compared by the boys we go out with. We're compared by the brothers that we grew up with. It's just, I think there's just not enough spaces for women to be honest with each other. And it's probably, it's probably the same situation for men, but I can only talk for what I know. And for me, I didn't have that support as a woman. And I felt like the inequalities even in my family, where boys weren't forced to do certain things, yet women were expected to be experts at a lot more things. And therefore I had a lot of anxiety, I think, and a lot of complexes, because you kind of feel like you're never enough. That's how you develop this thing as a woman of I'm not enough, I'm not good enough. And I wanted to create a space where women could talk about any story without any judgment. And it wasn't just a trending story. It wasn't the story that was already heard. It could be something quite traumatizing. It could be something very light. It could be something, anything you want to share that's kind of different and doesn't have a space. That's what I want to see. And I also didn't want to create a space where the same narrative was coming from the same people, as you can see in most of the media. So I didn't want to choose ultimately I'm choosing the stories that get shared. But I always challenge myself to share a story that surprised me, something that I don't know about, because then I assume that a lot more people don't know about it either. So I really wanted to create something that was a little bit more equal, a little bit fairer. And, I hate using the buzzwords like diversity and all this, but at the end of the day, it is, as a mixed race person, I don't like how diversity is being done. I don't like how it's being talked about, especially in the fashion world. I don't like that people that look like me, maybe way better looking, but people that look like me, ethnically speaking, are being used to sell a product, and that they are the trend of the moment, and that's it. They're not being promoted for their stories or what they contribute to the overall overarching culture. They're just the trending image of the moment, and so we use them. And I'm saying that about mixed race people.
Trendy beauty standard.
Exactly. And I think, mixed race, it's been a few years that we've seen that. We've gone in and out of fashion for the past few years, I would say. And now you've got, a lot more openness in, I want to say, using. I don't want to be discriminating against people with disabilities, but I feel like, again, it's a group that's being used, not promoted, but used by fashion brands as well. The past couple of years, and people with, there's been a lot, especially in the body world, so in the lingerie and the beauty world, a lot of people using people with skin differences and skin conditions and all these sort of things. And it's never really for awareness. It's more about like trying to find that extra thing, like that kind of, there's a bit of a shock factor that I feel brands are after, and there's no follow-up. And so for me, I really wanted to just create a relationship as well. Like, I mean, you and I ended up really, bonding over this photo shoot, and I'm now on your podcast, and I love these exchanges. That's actually not, like, I think this is the second or third podcast that I end up with, that I end up doing after a photo shoot with someone that participated in the anti-casting. And I think that's way more enriching for me. I don't really, I've got nothing against using models, and I think it's a real job. Like, I can't stand pictures of myself. I find it really hard.
It's
like
hard
every time it's so hard. So I'm not dissing any model out there, but it's not the same experience for me, and it's not the same outcome, and it's not what I'm trying to create is what I'm trying to say. And yeah, for my brand, like for once in my life, I could choose exactly how I wanted to do things, and I didn't have anyone else to discuss it but me. And me and myself decided that that's the way we wanted to do things. And so that's the anti-casting, and it's been amazing. And I think that's why, people are so intrigued by it and so excited. Like, we're going to do our first collaboration shoot with another brand next week that really is excited about this.
Amazing.
But they've never done, like, they don't have the story, they can't really do it by themselves because their brand has never gone through the process. And so they can leverage a brand like mine to start sharing stories and start cementing storytelling as part of their branding as well. I'm so curious to see how that's going to go. It's just super exciting for me. It's super exciting for me. Like, anyone who's looking at representing human beings in a way that's more honest really excites me.
That's amazing. Yeah, the anti-casting experience for me, we started out by submitting a form online, writing a little bit about what our stories are. To me, like you said, it's sort of a therapeutic in some ways to put myself out there, to write that story and to tell that story. There's pain and there's hurt in there, but to somehow share that with the world and know that lots of other women possibly are going through the same thing, are likely to see this and hopefully be encouraged by it, became a source of strength for me as well. And I mean, nothing is fairer than a blind casting session, I feel. And all the models are all so beautiful. It has nothing to do with the traditional beauty standards, but they're all, every single one of them is completely beautiful, and I love all the images. I'll put the links to Instagram and to the website, in the notes so that you can check it out for sure. That's just, I think, amazing. And plus meeting other women as well. It's just such a great opportunity.
That's actually what we've been missing the most during COVID, because, I mean, as you know, when you came, you had a session with us. So we split, like, we gave a slot to everyone coming through the day. But we used to normally do, and we're doing this next week again. We're starting this again next week, which I'm really excited about. But we used to do 4 women in the morning, 4 women in the afternoon. And that gets you an opportunity to bond with other people. Like, I've had people, it's so funny. Like, I had 2 girls from Manchester coming down for a shoot, and they didn't do the same session, but I think they were on the same day. And then they saw each other's stories on Instagram. And then one day they bumped into each other on the streets in Manchester, and then they were sending me pictures of, like, 2 anti-casting participants. I'm like, oh my God, like, the friendships that are being created, the relationships that are being created, like you said, beautiful. The therapeutic aspect of it is so amazing. Like, I've had so many people sending their story, not thinking I was ever going to get in touch with them. And then I select them, and they're shocked almost. And then, so it's like, this whole experience is amazing, because you send your story, you think, what is it worth? Like, nobody's going to read it. And then I select it. You come and meet me and the team. You don't know where you're going. We used to shoot in a very dodgy, like, studio before. It's a beautiful studio, but it's hidden away in Hackney. We're actually shooting there next week again, which I'm like, it's kind of fun because that's kind of where it started. But, like, studios in London are in, like, really grimy area and really scary area, and I'm always thinking, like, the women that come through, it's kind of funny because I have to reassure them beforehand, because it's like, yes, it's, this is where you're going. Like, we're going in Hackney, but this is me. Like, it's funny because there's so much trust being built as well through the experience, because you're giving me your story, you're giving me your image, you're coming to a dodgy area to do a photo shoot, like even though the studio when you walk in is then amazing. Like it's all these things where I'm like, women are really badass. Like, you know, when you have something to say or when you have something to prove, when there's something you want to do, like it's in your head, like you won't let go. You're like a dog with a bone, and I love that. And all the women that I've met are like that. Like they have such strength inside, and I think most women do. They just don't always realize it.
What would you say to women who are afraid to either tell their story, afraid to even show their face online, or afraid to build their brand, afraid to kind of be confident and be out there, to grab those opportunities that are out there waiting for them? What would you say to women who are a little bit shy and a little bit afraid?
A lot of them, it's not so much just being shy as well. It's like we have to remember that untold stories are not told for a reason. And usually they come from minority groups, and those groups are not protected, right? And I mean, I come from a Muslim background. I'm half African, half white, and half of my family is Christian. The other half is Muslim. And I grew up with boys, and I make lingerie. I'm like, you know, the black sheep of the family, to be honest. Like my story is a story that's also hard to tell sometimes, because you might be confronted to an audience that doesn't get it or stereotypes it. And I think that a lot of women that see the anti-casting are excited by it but would never share the story. I think you have to weigh the pros and the cons of doing something like this. It's always easier for a white woman, a middle-class white woman who has a tight-knit family, a very established job, to do something like this, because what is she going to lose? You know, if someone sees their photos, they'll be raving for her to do more of these sort of things and put herself out there, and they'll say it's amazing. Someone coming from my background, some people in my family might see a photo of me in my own lingerie on my website and think I'm not someone worthy enough. It's, same exact situation, two different contexts, and the risks aren't exactly the same. So I don't blame anyone for being too shy to take the plunge, but I'm very grateful for all the people that come from minority groups that have shared their stories and stripped off. And that was one of my concerns with the anti-casting. It was that, only a type of people would be sharing their stories. And there's been a couple of people that have come through, well, more than a couple of people, but a few people that have come through that come from groups that are a little riskier, I think, in the sense that, I think they are actually risking relationships to come and share their stories, which I think is really brave. And that's also why I actually created a version of the anti-casting that's fully dressed. We haven't released any of these photos yet, but we had a shoot last year. So the idea is exactly the same. You still share your story based on the same themes that are the under-arguments of the brand. And you come and shoot with us, and we do beautiful photos with our usual photographer. It's like black and white imagery. And the idea is to compile a book at some point and have all these stories shared. And it's, it's amazing to be able to offer an alternative to people that can't do the lingerie shoots as well.
That's absolutely amazing. I 100% support that. That sounds amazing. What are some kind of feedback that you have gotten from women that have done this? What have they told you? Has it changed them in some way? I
think it's a really deep experience. I think even I didn't realize it when we first started, like the emotional aspect of it, the healing aspect of it as well. A lot of women have told me how much they did it. Like, first of all, I think writing their story, a lot of them have told me I didn't realize how much I needed to do that. So if anything, like outside of the anti-casting, I think a lot of women should write down their story. I was talking to a psychologist once, and she gave me this exercise to do, which I found really interesting. And I've never really been comfortable with like talking to therapists or anything, but this exercise was really interesting. It was a timeline. So you would draw a timeline, so just a line, and start from as early a memory you can and to the most recent memory you can. And at the top, I think you would put like all the positive aspects, all the positive memories you have, and at the bottom you put all the negative memories you have of your life. And then you sort of do a little bit of an analysis on what are the common threads in those negative and positive aspects of your life. And I found it really, really useful. And I think it is similar to writing your story and trying to understand yourself a bit better. And that's what a lot of us do. And I think you get through phases as a human being, but as a woman, probably more, because we've got more phases in our lives than men. where you feel like you're losing yourself. And I think it's having a bit of a manifesto of who you are is very interesting, and it's probably quite important. And just something it's almost like a business plan, but to yourself. It's like remembering who you are. Like, I think, you know, keeping a journal or writing down a few things, I think it's good. Like, sometimes, I don't know if you ever do that, but I found myself rereading my CVs, my past experience. I'm like, oh my God, I did this. Oh, I did that. Oh, like, you forget that you know.
It's so true. So true.
Like, sometimes you have a bad day and you feel like you've never achieved anything in your life. And then, you know, it's good to have a trace of what you've actually done to remind yourself that actually I am worth something. Like, I've achieved all these things. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, I think I need to add that into one of the podcast sessions or my personal branding course, to tell people to look back on the past achievements, because I think we're often focused on improving ourselves or be more seen, be more promoted, or like get more better jobs and get raises and all that. We forget to look back and see, wow, all the things we have accomplished, times when we have failed and persevered through those failures as well. It's not just about successes. And that's how it got to us to where we are today. And that is so powerful. Yeah. For you, like, as you're working on your business as a female entrepreneur, how have you worked on sort of building your personal brand, and how have you worked on telling your story? Of course, you're on the podcast telling it right now, but what are some other ways that you do that?
So it's funny because I don't think I've been very strategic about it, and I think I should probably be that a little bit more, especially nowadays. I think, you know, I'm not on Instagram, I'm not on social media. Like, I'm a bad example of that in that sense. But I also think sometimes you just need to be honest with yourself and do what feels right. Like, having my own business gives me the right to do things the way I want. And for me, it also gives me the right to not, you know, follow certain patterns or strategies that are the common strategies that do work, but they potentially are not for every personality type. And I think having the professional experience that I've had and knowing what I want for my personal life as well, there's a few things that I'm like, okay, this is not for me. And anything that adds more stress to my life, I'm not down for. And I think in terms of my personal branding, it's a funny word to say that because I feel like a product, but it's like, I just want to be honest with myself and with others. Like, I want to be comfortable in any space I'm in. Like, this is me, my personal exercise in terms of like branding, or actually, like, I feel like branding is kind of like just achieving to be yourself in any situation, really, and showing the best of yourself in any situation. Like, I need to be able to be 100% truthful at any moment, any point in time. And that's what I try to do. Yeah, I try to do that with the people that I meet through the intercasting, my suppliers, all this. Like, I'm not perfect. If my factory was to hear me here, they'd be like, she's horrible to work with. No, I don't think they would say that. No, I don't think they would say that either. But that's the thing. It's like being human, like just communicating with people. I'm not. I've worked in corporate spaces before where everything is very formatted. People have to follow a certain format, and it's not for me. Like, it just doesn't work. It makes me angry. Like, I'm not able to be myself. And I just think what I want to seek for myself and my personal branding is to just be able to be myself, like not feel stressed, not feel uncomfortable, not feel like I don't belong because I don't have 50,000 followers on Instagram, or that I don't, you know, whatever other boxes you might want to tick or need to tick, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I think that's something that I experienced too. I completely agree with you. It has to be about being authentic to yourself first, and then thinking about how you add value to other people and to the people that follow you, wherever. Oftentimes people ask me, you know, how they always jump into social media. They always jump into, how do I increase my Twitter followers, my Instagram followers? How do I get like 1,000, 1 million fans, whatever? I'm looking at my Twitter, I'm looking at my Instagram going like, I have hundreds, thousands of followers, not like tens of thousands or more. But it doesn't matter because I'm true to myself building this brand. I'm offering value that helps other people. It doesn't really matter if it's 10 people who's here or listening to this, or like 100 or 1,000 or whatever. Those metrics are really fake, in my opinion. I think what you've done really well is you have taken the hard work of really understanding who you are, what gives you joy, what works in your work-life balance, and what you want to achieve with your business, and being true to that. And that is the hardest work of all, I think. It's not so much, I mean, you can always pay for ads and you can get all the followers you want, but that's not true and that's not real.
Yeah, I think relying on, and I think most people know that, but relying on social media to feel like you've accomplished anything is really tough. Like my brand, because the Underargument, because it's lingerie, we get banned by Instagram every other day of the week. We have a lot of issues with the algorithm. Like if you look at my last 3 posts, you'll see random posts that gets 30 likes, and then the last post went over 1,100 likes or something for no reason. These are the same posts. It's just like you can't rely on Instagram because Instagram is going to push whatever it wants to push. So sometimes it's the more skin that's going to work. Sometimes it's the less skin that's going to work, and the greater story. And you never know. So when it comes to your own personal Instagram, like relying on those virtual likes is very dangerous. And that's the reason why I don't use Instagram personally, because I want to meet people in the flesh. Like it probably cuts me off. Like I meet a lot of people through Instagram, through the brand, but personally, like I try to cut down. And you'll see on Instagram, I don't follow a lot of people. Most of the people that I follow are people that participated at the Intercasting because I met them in real life, or they're very informative Instagram accounts, or they're people that I haven't met yet but have had really deep conversations with, because these people don't give me anxiety. Like it's simple as, like, I don't compare myself to them. I don't feel tempted to be like, oh my God, I'm not good enough because, when I compare myself to this or that person, like they've achieved all these things. We all know, like everyone obviously presents the best of themselves and the best achievements on social media. But yeah, it's a reality of today. Like we have to live with it. I try to stay away from it just because of my mental health. And I know it's not good for me. Like, I don't think it helps me. It doesn't mean that I'll always be like that. I think that as my brand gets more steady, maybe I'll start wanting to share more things about how I got to where I got to with the brand, and maybe aspects of my personal life as well. But I think it's all, like each to their own, and you have to do things in your own time as well. And you don't have to be like, everything you do has to be sustainable. If people talking to you are like, oh, how do I get to 2,000 followers? Well, you get to 2,000 followers or more, or 10 or hundreds of thousands, because you're consistent and because you put a lot of work in it. Like those people that have hundreds of thousands of followers, there's a girl that I've been talking to, like we got really close, and she's at like 300,000 followers or something. This guy is a hustler. Like she spends her time creating content. Like that's what she does. It's a full-time job. She doesn't get paid. Like she's promoted stuff for the Underargument. She never even approached it as a promotional thing. That's just like, a product that she loves, a concept that she loves, a business that she loves. I don't think she gets paid for most of, like, any of her posts really. But I think she is just so open. She has a great story and she shares it, and she found her crowd, and she's been working at it for a long time. I also don't think like someone who started an Instagram account 7-8 years ago, whenever it started, like almost 10 years ago, had a better chance of creating an audience than you creating it today with no other support, right? Like it is a medium like any other that requires marketing. It's not like you're just going to launch an Instagram account, it's going to get picked up and you're going to get all this traffic. So yeah, it's a tough one to be thinking that you have to be there and create something huge on there. You just have to find your place, and your place might be offline. Like your place doesn't have to be on Instagram or online. Like maybe it's a meetup group.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't know. Like
that's true. Yeah. I think I always say the biggest mistake with personal branding is thinking it's about you, thinking it's about promoting yourself, it's getting as many followers as you can, being have as much influence as you can. But I think ultimately it's about adding value to other people. If you have one person that's your core audience and you're adding value to them, however you do it, that's a valuable thing and a worthwhile thing to do. More than
that's actually really numbers. True. I've never heard this before, but it's so true. Like anything you do is actually hardly about you, like or it shouldn't.
It's not.
Like,
it shouldn't.
Obviously you need to recoup. Like you need to, you need to take care of yourself. But aside from that, most of what we do, like, we don't live in our own little bubble by ourselves. And as long as you don't live in your own little bubble by yourself, like, you have to take into consideration others. And if you want, it's a give and give situation, right? Like, if you want to have this big audience, or you want to have more people to share your thoughts with, then like, have great thoughts to share. Like, it starts there kind of thing. It's like, it's not magical. It's, you have to have something to say, and you have to have a place. Like I said, for my lingerie brand, the Underargument wouldn't exist without the anti-casting. Like, the anti-casting is not a marketing tool to sell the Underargument. The anti-casting is the Underargument. Like, one doesn't go without the other. The storytelling doesn't get, like, it can't escape the Underargument. Like, that's what the Underargument is about. So one doesn't exist without the other. And I think that's my USP, and that's why the brand exists. And I'm using lingerie to say these things. Lingerie is my medium, just because I grew up finding lingerie very therapeutic and finding it very empowering. And I wanted to make it literally empowering to other women by bringing in storytelling. And that's what I do.
Oh, that's so brilliant.
I had someone telling me the other day, she was like, well, I feel like your brand is like, she was a wealthy white woman who told me my brand. She's like, yeah, it's amazing. Your designs are amazing, but I don't see myself on there, which is funny for a white woman, because usually I get a lot of people of color or people with disability or, anyone with any kind of difference that's not mainstream telling me they don't see enough of themselves. And for the same reason we discussed earlier, the reason why potentially you don't see enough of other people you want to see more is because, like, people come to me kind of thing. Like, I advertise the concept, but then I have to rely on people sharing their stories. But this woman was telling me she doesn't see herself when, there are other white women on the website. So I don't know what that means. I don't know exactly where she, places herself. And then she was like, I feel like this is a website for minorities. And I was like, how interesting is that? Because at the end of the day, maybe it is. And that's fine. Like, I'm cool with being for the 2%. Financially, it's probably not the greatest strategy, but it's also, again, it's like, maybe my brand doesn't need to exist if it doesn't work for the people that I have in mind, or for the concept that I have in mind. Like, maybe it is something that will live only a few years. I have no, like, it's, that's not what I want, obviously, but I also want to be true to myself. So if my business existed to just inspire other businesses as well, kind of like, that's great, like, that's also, like, maybe I fulfill my mission by just doing that. I don't know. That's, again, God, if you hear me, that's not what I want. Like, I want this brand to continue. But what I'm trying to say is, like, sometimes we get bogged down by a success that's, success can mean many things. And maybe, maybe gaining like almost 100 women to come and share their stories with me, maybe that's the success, like, maybe the metrics
is absolutely a success. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
all the relationship that's born out of your project and your brand, that's amazing. Like, you and I are here, and I love working with you, and through the brand and through the podcast. So those relationships, I mean, that's invaluable.
Yeah,
I think also another thing that the listeners can hear from your story is, we can always reinvent ourselves. We're not plugged into like one identity. You have to define your personal brand now, and then that's going to be your brand forever. It's like, no, change it up. You started out in fashion, you did branding, you did digital marketing, SEO, different things. You're now, a successful entrepreneur. Who knows what you're going to do next, right? You have this book coming out soon. You have collaborations with other brands. So it's always evolving and growing. And
that's why it's so important to be honest with yourself, because if you're honest with yourself and with other people, then the day the day I become someone who works at a circus, no one is going to be surprised. They'll be like, yeah, Maïna does whatever. Like, it's not going to be like, what is she doing now? Like, I do whatever. So that doesn't shock people. That's also the thing. It's like, if you're very rigid and you're creating an image for yourself that's not you, then it becomes, anxiety generating, and you don't know how to get out of it. Like, what if tomorrow you want to just be, I don't know, a chef, but you were this big corporate person, and, people knew you as that, and you gave no flexibility to your personality, then that becomes a bit harder. So I think we need to be a bit kinder. Like, this is going to sound very Ellen DeGeneres, but we need to be kinder to ourselves. Like, we need to be more honest. We need to be more real. It's like, just be more authentic. And some personalities can't deal with that. Some personalities have to have a format and be more rigid. And if you find out that that's your kind, then that's probably fine. But for other people out there, like just give you as much room as you can to be whoever you want to be.
And I also think that people are generally much more supportive than we imagine in our heads. If I heard some big CEO executive is going to go be a chef, I'm going to say, well done you to pursue your dream. Like, what a great thing to do, great thing to try.
And I think that's the thing is, like, you might say that for someone that you don't know, but if you're that person's wife, she's like, I'm sorry, but I married a CEO that did that, and that, and I was flying first class, and now you're telling me I've got to go economy because you want to take cooking lessons, and we've got, I don't know, like, I'm just trying to say that if you, like, the more rigid you are, like, the less flexibility you give to yourself and the less sort of room you tell, like, sometimes I feel like that, like, just give lower expectations to people. Like, don't tell them you're going to come out with a bang. Just be like, I'm going to see how things are going to pan out as well. Like, sometimes it's okay to not be too over the top for yourself and for others. Like last year, 2020, right? End of 2019, I was going to do my first trade show in France. It's the biggest trade show in lingerie. I used to go there and see all these amazing brands. Never thought my brand would one day be there, right? So I'm preparing for that show. And then a week before the show, I get a call from the PR of the show. And she's like, hey, someone would love to do an interview with you. It's probably going to be a video thing. She doesn't give me much background. All of a sudden, I find out that it's actually a journalist from 60 Minutes wanting to do a documentary of the brand. A week later, I'm on, like, I'm being followed like the Kardashians around London and then Paris to talk about the intercasting. And and then a month later, I was on like primetime TV with a documentary on the brand. I never set that expectation for myself. Like, I worked hard for things to be at a certain level so I could be proud of them, but that's my own standards. And it happens that my standards are probably quite high, and that's good for me. But, I think you have to just be true to yourself. Like, those standards have to come from within. They can't come from someone else. Like, you can't try and please someone else. You can only be very proud of your work and very proud of the value you add in other people's lives. And that's it. You have to be comfortable with that. And other things will come out of your hard work and you trying to meet more people and you're trying to do better. But, like, sometimes it doesn't it just doesn't have to be compared to someone else is what I'm trying to say. I think that comparison is the danger. Like, amazing things come out of you just doing you. Like, it's just crazy. That documentary Absolutely. I would never expected. It's insane.
Great. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really loved listening to your story.
Thank you so much.
Add all the things in the show notes. And thanks so much.
Thank you.
This episode is produced by Oval Branding, a London-based award-winning branding agency that serves corporate clients and personal clients around the world. Visit ovalbranding.com to contact us about your next marketing project. I am Kaitlin Zhang. Thank you for listening.